some of the changes we still need to work on as a region, as a country, and for all those thousands of people to be overshadowed by a few selfish and violent individuals last night is a shame. And it's of all weekends for there to be more violence and more bloodshed, it's just an awful shame.
Do we know anything about the few who caused all the trouble? Do we know how many? A lot of people say they weren't from here. Do we have any idea who they are?
No, I don't know who they were. So after, there were a lot of different events yesterday. The big march, the peace rally, and then there was a concert downtown. And so most of the protest community were at events and other things. But there was a small group of very vocal people who got into a confrontation with police, and the police line that was so familiar last year with the riot gear came back out. And so, a lot of us were out there working the crowd just trying to, diffuse that situation. And it did. The crowd dispersed, and the group, a portion of that group, though, left where the police line and went back towards the businesses. I walked back there after I saw a large group, and I saw reporter Paul Hample from the Post-Dispatch walking back, holding his head and saying that he had just been beat up and his phone was stolen. And so as I went back there to the businesses, this was around where the 911 nail or hair salon is, and the Better Family Life office on West Florissant. When I got back there, I saw two windows that had already been busted open, the 911 hair salon and the Better Family Life. And so I stood in front of the broken window to protect it from any more looters getting in, and I was there only a couple of minutes before gunshots rang out just about 75 feet away. And it was just a few gunshots, and then it was followed by more gunshots. People started running. We hid behind vehicles, and the gunshots just kept going, and they were coming from multiple directions. After the dust cleared, we learned that somebody had gotten shot across the street, which really was away from the initial action. And then the St. Louis County Police later confirmed that it was a police-involved shooting. So it was just a lot of confusion, and the fact that occurred on that night, and that's all the world is talking about, and not the peaceful demonstrations of 1,000 people, is disappointing.
Well, certainly it is disappointing, but it's and a lot of people blame the news media, but a peaceful demonstration would have been the story of the day today all around the country, except we're playing video, and it seems like, and Chief Ballmer mentioned it at his 2 o'clock news conference, a rain of bullets were everywhere. You had two kids who were shot in a drive-by shooting at 2 o'clock in the morning, right next to where Michael Brown was shot. So the news media has a responsibility to talk about the shooting that happened last night.
No, I'm not at all blaming the news media. I understand, how it works. And if anybody, I blame the individuals that came out there for a selfish agenda, one of self-serving and opportunistic. Those who came out as a small group to steal and to take advantage of the situation. So I actually agree also with Chief Bellmer's description that there was and remains a very small group out there that does not want peace and that are looking to take advantage of this entire situation and to possibly spark more violence. And that's something that the police have to be aware of, and it's also something that the protester groups are always aware of. And usually when there are the protester groups out there, they regulate a lot of that. The traditional protesters, a lot of them weren't out there last night, and it was, really just a small group of a larger percentage of some troublemakers.
This comes under the context of a very violent summer here in the St. Louis metropolitan area, but more importantly in the city of St. Louis. Murders are up. There's all sorts of talk about all of this. In the greater context, these few troublemakers, can we associate them with the larger crime wave that is going in and around St. Louis, not necessarily having anything to do with Michael Brown?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, these the events of the weekend don't occur on some island. This is in the middle of, as you said, a very violent time in the city and in our region. And so you have a lot of folks, that on the weekend, that is what they're doing. They're engaged in gun activity, they're shooting, and I saw even the night before that a lot of them were gathered around West Florissant after the protest earlier on South Florissant, and there was someone got shot that night down there. And so, we just have a lot of violence in our city right now, and I am as frustrated as anybody else. But we have a lot of healing to do, a lot of repairing, and really I think we need to stay focused on these situations and these circumstances which lead to the violence, which leads to the kind of the violent encounter that we saw a year ago with Mike Brown and Darren Wilson.
Do you think do you have any problem with what you saw with the police last night, or any of the officials last night? Do you have any issues with how they tried to keep the peace last night?
So I was very complimentary of how the police, both St. Louis County and Ferguson, had handled the weekend so far. It was a much different approach than we saw last year, more welcoming, more neighborly, and I was very complimentary. I don't know I wasn't there at what led to the riot gear coming out, and so when I came back to see that was that familiar sight again with the riot gear, we really felt it was necessary to kind of diffuse that situation before it led to something bigger. But as far as what led to the shooting itself, no, I didn't see anything that the police did wrong. If it happened like the chief described it and like I saw, which was that it was a shooting incident that happened among people on the north side of West Florissant, and as that guy ran away who was shooting, ran into 4 plainclothes police officers, and he still had his gun in his hand. It probably did happen like Belmar said it happened.
A couple more questions for St. Louis City Alderman Antonio French. You tweeted out something that's getting a lot of attention this morning. Tell us the story. You helped during the gunfire. You helped some people take cover in the Heal St. Louis offices. What happened?
Yeah, as the gunfire was continuing, I made my way to the Heal STL office, and it was some young people still running around. A group looked like they didn't have a place to go, so I opened the door, let them in to have, shelter from the gunfire. And while I was in the front of the building, turns out they stole a few laptops and iPads from the back. Now, that's disappointing. Is not entirely discouraging. I mean, we know, I work in neighborhoods all over the city. And, we open up schools for kids and after-school programs, and sometimes those buildings get broken into. I've been at churches where, they give away food, and, it's always some people who take advantage of the situation. But I'm not going to let that deter me from my mission. And I don't think anybody should let that very misguided minority determine how you feel about the entire group.
There are a number of people, Antonio French, St. Louis City Alderman, who are critical of Mayor Slay for not really being on the front lines of this crime problem and sort of taking a back seat and not being front and center. One, I'd like you to touch on that. And two, if you were king for a day, is there anything you would like to see done that is not being done to somewhat help solve this crime problem? Yeah,
so, myself and others have been calling for the mayor to create a comprehensive plan and to really address crime in the city for some time now. In fact, the entire African-American membership of the Board of Aldermen wrote a letter to the mayor asking him to create such a plan and for us to be included in its drafting, which he has not replied to, and I think we're going on our second week now. And so crime in the city is the number one priority for most folks who live in St. Louis. It is not a new stadium for the Rams. It is not NGA or Paul McKee's projects. However, those things get all the resources and all the planning and all the attention and the full support of the mayor. Meanwhile, we're looking at over 2,000 people being shot again in the city of St. Louis and almost 200 or more being murdered. and over half of those are unsolved murders at this point. So yes, if I was king for a day, and this is what I'm calling on the mayor to do, is to create a comprehensive plan. Now, what this means is that police can't do it alone. It has to involve policing techniques. It has to involve repairing some of the damage I think that Chief Dotson and Slay did when they instituted this awful redistricting plan about a year and a half ago. But it also has to involve how we allocate resources and focusing on those neighborhoods that account for most of the violence and also have seen the largest percentage of unemployment, the largest percentage of vacancy and abandonment. These are neighborhoods that have been forgotten by the city for decades, and now they are the hubs for most of the violent crime in the city. And so we need to really focus on that and take it as seriously as we do trying to retain the Rams or trying to appease large political donors like Paul McKee.
Do you think the city's now control of the police department has caused and or helped this crime problem as opposed to, I guess my question is, since the city has now control of the police, has that helped or hurt the crime issue?
Well, here's the deal, is that the city should have control of its police department as almost every other police department is controlled by its local government in the country. Now, what we've seen, though, is that as the control of the police department has now fallen to the city, it has fallen under the control of the mayor, and the mayor has not handled that responsibility very well. So what I was a very big supporter of local control, and still remain a supporter of local control, primarily because now under one office, under one guy, under the mayor, you now have control of the police department, the Parks and Recreation department, the health department, slate job placement, all these different agencies that if they work together could really transform these communities and lower the crime rate and improve the quality of life for citizens. And that has not happened. So I don't think it's a problem with local control. I think it's a problem with slate control.
That is St. Louis City Alderman Antonio French. Mr. French, we have to get you on much more than you are on. We thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
You got it. Antonio French, St. Louis City Alderman, who was there last night, tweeted a couple of interesting things. We touched on it there as well. 9:33, we'll take your phone calls. 314-969-KTRS, 1-888-550-KTRS, or star KTRS. Back in a moment. Big 550, KTRS.